Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Pat Chat, Procurement and Technology, where we get to talk to industry thought leaders and people that are really changing the world through procurement and supply chain. And I'm super excited to talk to George Booth, CPO for Lloyd's Banking Group here today. George, thanks very much for joining me. Maybe you can talk a little bit about who Lloyd's Banking Group is.
Yeah, sure. Lloyd's is the largest retail and commercial bank and insurer in the UK market. Got approximately 30 million customers, and I've got about a 300-odd person procurement team. And we cover all spectrum of activities. Four main drivers for us: new technology discovery, so with the new fintech revolution, digitization of banking, value in everything we do, risk assurance, which is now my top priority, has been for 2 years, and then sustainability in everything we do. I'm really excited to see the partnership you've announced recently with EcoVadis.
You're halfway through a procurement transformation. Maybe you can talk a little bit about why you chose to do a procurement transformation, because that's not something you just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to do this, but maybe why, and then where you are and some of the key things that you think the audience might benefit from hearing about Lloyd's Banking Group and what made your program a success.
Yeah, typically when you come into an organization, you form a view that quite a lot needs change between people, process, technology. And that can create a lot of uncertainty, a lot of churn and change. But I was fortunate enough to have grown up through two transformations recently with two very experienced CPOs, learned a lot. And I guess I had the inner confidence that whilst I didn't want to do a sea change, I did point out to myself, we needed new technology. Technology is a big enablement for me to get better data insight, to make smarter, more proactive decisions. Second thing was risk was by far and away the biggest game in town. And when I talk about supply chains competing, what I talk about is that most organizations today, if they mapped out where they get their insight, their labor, their service sustainability, all comes from suppliers and at various layers down the supply chain. And I quickly figured out that I didn't really know or understand who my most critical suppliers were. I didn't know how I could access risk vector insight proactively. But what I did know was that in banking and financial services, like all other industries, we were under huge pressure to offer better propositions to customers. There was loads of new competition coming in. So it's a 350-year-old enterprise. If we didn't move with the times, get more nimble in technology discovery, more nimble in understanding our risks and becoming a sustainable business in the eyes of the customer, we wouldn't be around for much longer. So we took a lot of time to think through the key building blocks of that. And first and foremost, the team. I had the right team. We made one or two changes to bring in a few experts in certain areas. The technology was ready for an upgrade. We squeezed everything out with you guys over 7 years, and we were ready to take the leap. We went to market. We did a thorough evaluation, as you can imagine. We chose the SAP Ariba proposition. And the main reason for that was continuity would be what you guys offered in an ecosystem in terms of the investment you were making through your roadmap, but the partnership that you've built with people like ServiceNow and EcoVadis. We're really excited by that. And what I now know is my suppliers, in terms of who's got my data, who underpins my critical services, who represents a cyber threat because they've got an intermittent or permanent link or they upload software, and who from a conduct point of view can detrimentally impact their customers. So we've got a pyramid, and we apply our resources to the top of that pyramid. And where we're then going is upgrading the skills. In addition to my 300 sourcing and procurement colleagues, we've got another 300 do supplier management at the coalface. So we're really investing in upgrading their skill set. So again, coming back to people, process, technology, we've done their traditional focus and approach in that, but choosing the right technology partner is key. And that's, as you know, Papa, we keep stretching your horizons and challenge to get, at my supplier managers and buyers' fingertips, the very latest insight proactively ahead of everyone else. So how can we do that? Because that then enables better decision making. Better decision making equals better business outcomes for our stakeholders.
When I think about the people that have picked Ariba as their platform, it sometimes gets left to the side, but it's really become a big differentiator has been the network and the access to suppliers is the first point, like finding these new sources of supply. We've really seen that as COVID is. And then the second part of that is, I think that there's going to be, you mentioned this earlier, kind of end-tier visibility into my supply base, not just my tier one or that first relationship, but what are their suppliers doing, and then what are their suppliers doing? And the only way that transparency happens is with a network.
And that's hugely powerful. So if you could leverage your network, overcome all the issues and challenges of proprietary information and GDPR, etc., but even offer thematics anonymized, that is hugely valuable. And you're going to find it in, there'll be a nickel mine in South Africa goes on strike, or there'll be a typhoon hits, the west coast of Asia. All of these things will immediately be reflected in your system because people are taking action or moving things about. And then if you can extract that and turn it into intelligence, that's hugely valuable.
It's a game changer for companies, yeah. And I think this pandemic is giving everybody the recognition that, hey, sharing my data isn't a bad thing. Sharing my insights, it's better for everybody. So I think we are really digging in here and saying, hey, look, let's talk about the broader community. Let's talk about how transparency drives trust for the organizations, and it's not me giving up my intellectual property. It's me contributing to the global community and supply chains, and to these points, resiliency. And frankly, purchasers or people that are spending the money are starting to require it, and so that's also going to drive compliance to this idea of saying, hey, look, I'm going to do business with you as long as you can drive your suppliers and their suppliers to a spot where I can actually see what's going on.
And I would certainly be encouraging you, if you're not, I'm sure you are already, but applying your lens to what could we have foretold retrospectively, looking back to the epicenter of this, and therefore what constitutes a potential future business model, and what's the value proposition in that? Because pandemics are going to be probably a thing that's with us for the next period of time, but then there's many other things that happen, big cyber attacks, weather events, local macroeconomic, socioeconomic disruptions. I think CPOs who are not on the ball are not going to get credited with, well, I couldn't have predicted that. Well, guess what? You can. Yeah. You can react very quickly. And it's having that agility and mindset to respond. And ultimately, it's your supply chain that responds. So if it's not flexible and ready to go on its toes, then you're not going to be in the job for long.
We learned a lot in 2007, 2008, 2009. We did a lot of regression analysis on that and kind of saw some of those key signals, the same kinds of things here, so that really that to your point earlier, that we're getting some changes here now so that we can actually help companies. We can be more proactive instead of reactive. Like learning from the past is great, but also how do we predict the future? You mentioned at the beginning you've got source to contracts rolled out and implemented, and you're halfway through the implementation of the next phase, the transactional aspect of that. What are your expectations? You got a big community of end users here. What are you setting as the gold standard?
Yeah, so I've got 300 in my sourcing team, and I've got another 300 in the supply management communities across the businesses. So they were the recipients of phase one, and nobody really blinked. It's an internal process. I'll always have a few grumpy buyers saying the system doesn't do exactly as it says, or it's harder to learn. But it's an in-house job. This one is 70,000 end users, some of whom buy, hundreds of items a week, and many who buy on behalf of others. And where their expectation of work is defined by their expectations at home, which is, a brand that people often just type a few words into and bang, 2 touches, they get it delivered. So the ambition that our joint organisations have shared is, how can we, for what we call find, buy, pay, make it easy to find the right thing. And I'm very much in the camp of trusting my colleagues. So I don't have very restrictive catalogues that preclude them from buying loads of stuff offline, because guess what? They'll go and do it. They'll write a check, they'll use a credit card, they'll use expenses. So we want to, through analytics, figure out what my 70,000 peers in the core organisation want, and make it easier for them to find the right thing. And as you know, through Macateo or access into other markets, we can do that. Secondly, when they push the buy button, that experience is so easy from finding it. So they can use pictures, search words, they've got 3 or 4 touches, bang, and then the supplier is paid. seamlessly. So it's a very simple proposition, but it's the kind of cherry in the icing on the cake. Everything else internally is the hard part, the engineering, the build of the core cake. You have to get the right ingredient mix at the right temperature. But if that cherry is missing or the icing slightly cracked, all that good stuff inside, frankly, doesn't matter. So I'm doing a lot to make sure that we stress test it. We run demos with the top 200 users. We let them feed in early in the cycle on improvements. So whether that's the color of a screen or the position of a kind of pad or the search engine drop-down menus, all that, fuzzy front end stuff, we're trying to get the end users en masse there. You guys have been fantastic to work with us to facilitate that. And again, for 8 weeks, we've been doing it virtually. It was always great to be in the lab with a whiteboard, and I like to get stuck in as a buyer myself. You can't help yourself because it's in your DNA. So 70,000 people, date in September, they have that uber smart buying experience from day one. Or I'll get loads of complaints, which we can deal with a few. I'm hugely confident that the teams are going to pull it off.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I think it sounds, you're on the path to designing something people want to use, not have to use, people want to use.
Exactly.
George, this conversation has been absolutely fascinating. I love from where you started about how you think about the role of procurement in the organization and where your focus, I think, is truly innovative and it's truly next generation thinking, all the way down to thinking about all 70,000 constituents and how you drive a wonderful experience for each and every one of those people. And I hope that everybody that listened to our conversation today took some of those snippets away to think about how they're going to change the strategy or really evolve the strategy of their organization, all the way down to how do I make my program that I'm in the middle of successful today and live, in both worlds. Great strategy, but execution matters. And you guys in the whole Lloyd's banking group are really doing both. So it's been a real pleasure to speak with you today.
Oh, thank you. And the way I would sum it up is, we're jointly trying to make it better than usual, right? It has to be better. You have to constantly stretch and improve. And what we believe to be impossible, we can make possible by getting the right people together with the right tools, the right mindset, and a bit of hard work, and you can do it. So really exciting times.
That's a great wrap up, George. I won't add anything to that. I'll thank everybody that watched us today. Stay safe and look forward to talking to you all again soon.